Now, one area where we need to be particularly strong is in those islands in the Pacific between the United States and China. My father fought in the Pacific. He landed the boats on island shores. We need to maintain our influence in places like the Solomon Islands, in places like the Cook Islands. The Solomon Islands being a place where thousands and thousands of American Marines died, and many in the Navy as well. And so, what have we done? We've eliminated our aid program of 20, and these countries are very small, these islands are small, the aid programs are small, yet they have a tremendous impact on influence in these strategic islands. We eliminated the $21 million support island for the Solomon Islands. We eliminated our $95,000 for the Cook Islands. And this is how we confront China, or this is how we have performative savings. Now, we need to confront China. One way we also need to confront China is in international lending and the credit rating agencies, the bond rating agencies that rate the creditworthiness of countries. And we need to tell those who rate other countries' creditworthiness that if they don't repay a phony debt to China, a debt trap debt to China, that should not be counted against them. What do I mean? I mean when China makes a loan to Sri Lanka, that they know Sri Lanka is not going to be able to pay from that project. And they put in there that, oh, if you don't pay, we get to control your port. Sri Lanka should be encouraged, don't give your port to China, give your middle finger to China. And you will be able to borrow from American banks and European banks and international lending associations. We should never allow a credit rating agency under our control to ding a country that is subject to this kind of blackmail from China. And this brings up the issue of foreign aid in general. You know, if you poll Americans, they'll say we're spending too much on foreign aid. And then you ask them how much of our budget is going to foreign aid. They say 25% of our American budget is going to foreign aid. It ought to be less. Then you ask them what percentage should we be spending on foreign aid. They say 10%. Well, guess what? We're spending way less than 1% of our budget on foreign aid. We're spending way less than the American people think we're spending. We're spending less than they want to spend. But they want it cut because they think it's over 30 times what it actually is. And that is why Ronald Reagan recognized the importance of our foreign aid program. Now, I've been in Congress for a long time. And I remember when Congress confronted the executive branch. It wasn't just Democrats against Republicans. It was all of us against the executive branch. And there are times when both sides of the aisle are going to need to do that. Now, there are some criticisms that are valid against our foreign aid and State Department budget. The State Department is doing something that is too woke for me, but is supported by Elon Musk. And that is when they have in their budget spending $400 million to replace the perfectly good armored cars that the State Department has now, armored vehicles designed to make sure that our diplomats are safe in dangerous places. We have perfectly good armored cars, but there's a proposal the State Department spend $400 million on new zero greenhouse gas emitting armored cars. Pretty damn woke. You'd expect the State Department, you'd expect the DOGE to have crossed that out, but they won't, because the explicit statement is this is $400 million for Tesla Cybertruck armored cars. So you know Elon ain't cutting that. And you know what they did to fool us because they think we're stupid? they changed the document a little bit. They took out the word Tesla. So now the State Department is going to spend $400 million on armored, U.S.-made cyber trucks. Do they really think those aren't going to be Tesla cyber? Is there somebody else who makes armored cyber trucks in the United States? That money is going to reduce the greenhouse gases of our armored vehicles, and it's going to Elon Musk. But there are a lot of things that are said about our foreign aid budget that are completely false. Elon Musk already has admitted that his statement that $50 million was going to condoms for Gaza was just a total mistake. Oopsie daisy. He apologized. It's okay, he thinks, for Doge to make a mistake, but if he can find even a single dollar of misspent money in any other agency, he says, well, that's a reason to abolish the whole agency and fire all the employees. Well, that $50 million was going for anti-AIDS programs in Africa, and some of it was going for condoms. That's one of the ways you try to prevent this transmission of AIDS. Now, why are these foreign aid programs in the interests of America? Well, first, you might think that we have a moral responsibility as the richest country in the world to do something for the poorest country in the world, but let's put that aside. If we don't provide foreign aid, China steps in, our influences decline, China's influence increases. If we don't provide aid to the very poorest people there, that gives them a strong incentive to try to come here. And you can try to stop him with a wall, but he had 4 years to build a wall, and he didn't build a wall. The best way to reduce irregular migration to America is to eliminate the reason that people are so desperate to come here. But finally, and most importantly, our aid deals with diseases. Musk already said, oopsie daisy, he didn't mean to cut the program to fight Ebola in Africa. He tries to restore it. Of course, he's already done so much damage to it, wasted so much money, who knows what. So that's more people getting Ebola in Africa, more chances for the disease to mutate, and then it comes here. But he is fine with cutting aid, cutting our actions against HIV/AIDS. Same issue. That disease mutates in every human it infects. 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 1,000,000 of those mutations make the disease more capable of surviving the drugs that we have, make it more communicable, make it more powerful when it comes back here. So a lot of Americans will be dying of AIDS next decade because of what we're doing or not doing in Africa this decade. So then they try to point to some other programs that are a waste of money. $6 million to help Egypt encourage tourism. Now, USAID, I've got Republican colleagues who think that, well, that's aid, that must be food for people who are hungry right now and are about to die of starvation. They don't know that USAID says U.S. Agency for International Development. The goal is not just to feed people who are hungry now, not just give a man a fish, not just give a woman a fish, teach them how to fish. And that's why an Agency for International Development would help Egypt develop its economy. You know what Egypt has? They got a lot of sand. That doesn't help them too much. They got pyramids. And if they can develop their tourist industry, which is a big chunk of their economy, they won't need our food aid because they'll have money of their own. So it was a good program, $6 million to help them get more tourists. You know who started that program? Donald Trump in his first, yes, they made a big deal of cutting a wasteful program that Donald Trump started. Then we're told that there's a circumcision program. And there was a circumcision program, voluntary, providing this very inexpensive operation. Why? because you reduce by 60% the risk of female-to-male transmission of AIDS. It is the single cheapest thing you can do to reduce AIDS. And then you make a joke out of it. And yes, you can make a joke. But it's not a joke when more people die of AIDS in Africa and more AIDS mutates in Africa because you had a funny joke. The Ebola cut was a mistake. Musk admits it. Oopsie daisy. The cutting of efforts to deal with HIV/AIDS in Africa, also a mistake. One other cut they made, and that is they cut oxygen in a clinic for people who had fled the terrible deaths in Burma, Myanmar. And as a result, a 71-year-old woman, Pei Ko Lau, died without her oxygen. And so I ask that this House not only reflect on the other 10,000 people in that refugee camp who are without medical care, but I ask that we adjourn in silence in the memory of Pei Ko Lau, who died at the hands of Elon Musk and Doge. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.